We're good. We're good. Hello, people, humans. Apologies. That was a bit of a mess around, technical difficulties, but we are back. My name's Griffin.
I'm Andre. We're from the Bower.
That is the place. And I hope you all managed to find it. I know it's a little bit late, but we'll just kind of soldier on and get through some of the cool content. First, I think we want to acknowledge country. So everyone at the Bower acknowledges the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional owners of the land upon which we work here. We recognise that sovereignty was never ceded, and pay our respects to elders past, present, future and emerging, and we extend that respect to all Aboriginal people. So yeah, thank you. So today we are going to chat about batteries.
And it is our last session, our last Facebook Live session in this format that we're doing, with Griffin and I speaking about electronics. We've previously spoken about electrical maintenance and safety and motors and that sort of stuff, and we're going to finish off with a very important topic, which is batteries, because everything's portable these days and battery technology has come along a long, long way.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about it because we think that not only is it something that is in like increasing numbers in pretty much everything that we use, but it's also something that changes all the time. The technology is constantly being improved. And we also think that there are a lot of manufacturers and retailers that kind of pretend that when your battery carks it or when your battery starts to play up, that you can't use that device anymore. And we really disagree with that, because batteries are something that it's pretty amazing how, even though they do have a temporary life, from anything 6 months to a couple of years, even though they do have that kind of short life when they're being used, they can be pretty easily replaced with no damage to the device. And it used to be something that you could do in pretty much everything.
Yeah, in lots of things you used to be able to replace the battery. And I gave the example of this device I had when I had one of these devices. The first device I bought quite a cheap one, and it was a completely sealed unit. I knew it had batteries in there. I knew they were in there, but I couldn't, when the batteries failed, I couldn't open the device and replace them. But this one here that I purchased, these people actually bothered to make it so I could actually have replaceable batteries in this particular unit. So that's another thing to watch out with your purchasing decisions. If you know that you're buying something that's going to have, it's going to be run by batteries, can you replace those batteries, or does the manufacturer, are they going to force you to buy a new product every time your batteries go out? And we've got more of a movement for that at the Bower. It's called the Right to Repair movement, and we've got a petition at bower.org.au. If you go there, you'll see a petition form that you can sign, and that is to throw up the New South Wales government and say, look, all these people are behind a push for the type of legislation that would make manufacturers, when they make things, not to build in, what's it called?
Built-in obsolescence.
Built-in obsolescence, that's it, I just forget it for some reason. So the big one I always put is for fridges. This always happens to me with fridges, is that when you open up the door and you have the trays and the drawers and the door, I always get the plastic tabs that, however the mechanism for putting in the door, they always break. And so I always end up, or if you put in a bottle, like a 2-litre bottle that's just too much, it will crack it. And it's like, oh, it's so annoying, because some people will actually throw that fridge out and get a new one just because the plastic shelves are broken and that sort of stuff. So these are the sorts of things we're looking at, and batteries falls underneath that umbrella.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'll talk a little bit, though I know we've got a bit more limited time.
Yes.
I think we'll talk a bit about the theory of what a battery is, how it works, why it works. Because I mean, we've got a bunch of different styles here. An old laptop battery, that's for old like a brad gun, a nail gun, and then obviously your old school, no brand batteries.
Yeah, alkaline. It's called alkaline batteries.
Your AA.
Yep.
And they're all pretty much using the same technology, but they look pretty inert. They look like they're not doing much, but they're pretty incredible. They're basically your energy pack for any of the items that you're using.
Well, electricity works by electrons moving down through a conductor. Did I have where was it? Here we are here. So there's copper in here. And when you have a battery, the chemical makeup of the battery here creates. Are we all good? we're going?
I hope so.
Oh, because of our technical difficulties this morning, we're a little bit. Are we on? Are we doing this and making sure that we're here? You have a positive and a negative. You always have two terminals on a battery, and this is DC power, direct current. And well, should I do the bunny rabbit analogy or the river analogy?
I think the river.
I'll do the
You've
river.
already done the bunny.
We've already done the bunny, yeah. So if you think of a river flowing one way, that's like the electrons, and through a conductor, because there are electrons on the outside of an atom, and they're all flowing in one direction. That's what batteries are. They're DC, direct current. The electrons actually flow technically from negative to positive, believe it or not. They actually, that's called, that's electron current. Flows from negative to positive. But a thing called conventional current, we think of the electrons flowing from positive to negative. So everybody says the power comes out of one thing and comes into the other. But it doesn't actually, you had some sort of analogy that you're pulling it through instead of pushing it. Yeah.
The way I understood how a battery works is that it's not necessarily, everyone thinks about, the battery being the energy source, and it is. But instead of, the way I understand it is that instead of pushing the power out and through the device, whatever you want to be powering, whether it's radio or watch or anything, it actually is pulling from the negative terminal. It's actually pulling energy through whatever you've decided to put it through, whatever circuit that you've decided to power, if it's a light or anything. And as a byproduct, that's actually powering that. But it's pulling the electrons or the electrical current through that circuit, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to think of because it is very much, even though it becomes less powered over time as it gets used up, it's not just a power pack. It's not a magic thing that just works. It's actually chemistry.
Yeah, it is chemistry. Yeah,
that's working inside those.
Yeah.
That also makes it a little bit more volatile and kind of dangerous, but it's also it's pretty incredible.
It is,
Yeah.
and it's the chemicals in the battery that do it. There's an anode and a cathode, and we have oxidization happening in there. And the way they set up the chemicals in a battery, you have an excess of electrons on one side, and the electrons are actually got a negative charge to them, believe it or not. You have an excess of electrons on one side, and you've got an excess of what's called holes, where electrons aren't, and that creates a positive charge. And so when you connect, you complete the circuit, and you connect from the positive to the negative, these electrons are attracted all the way through the conducting material and to the other side. So that's why the battery charge actually goes down, because as the electrons are pulled through, the battery wants to sort of get itself in balance. That's all the battery's trying to do. The chemicals are trying to get themselves in balance. So I've got too many electrons on this side, and I've got too many atoms over here without electrons on this side, and it's going all the way around. Now, I'm going to briefly touch on current versus voltage, because this is going to be important to when we take a look at the sizes of our batteries.
Right.
And I'm going to use the garden hose analogy.
Okay.
Voltage is like pressure. So if I have a garden hose and I put my thumb over the top of the garden hose and I can feel that water pushing, and like pressure is something like in your tyre, like PSI, pounds per square inch, and those sorts of things, or atmospheres, we're in one atmosphere here. Voltage is the pressure, and these are 1.5 volt. That's 1.5 volt.
Okay.
And even the smaller ones, they're 1.5 volt. And even if you have a bigger one, that's 1.5 volt.
So it has the same amount of pressure pushing out
Yes,
of
the
it.
same amount of pressure pushing out of it.
Okay.
The electrons moving is the current. So in the hose analogy, when the water is actually coming out, the water is the same as the electrons flowing. So the larger the battery you have, it doesn't necessarily mean it's got more voltage. The voltage of all these three batteries here is exactly the same, even though the casing is bigger. But what it has got more of is it's got more electrons in it. So it's got more current capability in it.
Okay.
So
does that mean it lasts longer?
it should, it either, it depends on the appliance. It can last longer, or you use the big one because the device is more current hungry. It uses more current. So technology has changed again because of high power LEDs, because you can get some very high efficiency LEDs that put out a lot of bright light. Do you remember the Dolphin Torches?
Yeah.
Do you remember the plastic Dolphin?
Massive torches.
And do you remember the batteries that were in those?
Yeah.
They're 6-volt batteries, and they were square, and they had the spring terminals on them. You do remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you just need to be old to remember that.
I vaguely remember going camping as a kid, and there was this bright yellow dolphin.
Yeah, Dolphin Torch. Now that's how we used to get really a really bright, a really long throw light. Was having one of those Dolphin Torches with the handles.
With a massive battery in it.
Yeah, and that was 6 volts. So that was the equivalent of putting 4 of these batteries in line. Because if you add batteries, if you put batteries here like this, like that, the voltages add together. So I've got 3 times 1.5 here, because they're in series, they're end to end. Now, if I put a multimeter, or if I put a measurement device on each end here that I've created, it would show 4.5 volts. So if you put them end to end like this, you increase the voltage. So those ones were 6 volts, but the capacity, they were so big because the globe that you used in those everyday torches, A, they wanted the torch to last for a long time, and B, those globes to get really bright needed a lot of current going through them.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Whereas now you can get
I know.
little, like a bike light,
Like the little mag
stuff
lights,
this size.
and it's new technology, they're LEDs. So we used to have incandescent globes, but now they're LEDs, light emitting diodes. And it's actually a quantum thing that's happening. So you have a p-n junction, a positive and negative junction. It's a quantum thing, like in transistors. And when electrons go from one state to the other state, they emit a photon. So it's completely different.
You're going heading
Yeah.
off in that direction.
So LEDs are working like a quantum effect,
Okay.
whereas light globes and old torches just worked on an incandescent effect, where you would just get a copper wire or some sort of wire heating up, and that would produce light. Yeah.
Okay.
Now.
So I guess we touched on it a little bit, but it'd be nice to maybe talk about now that we've caught up on the first 15-20 minutes.
Yes.
To slow down a bit and talk about kind of how batteries are made, why they're made, what they're made out of. It's something that varies quite a bit. You kind of assume that it's all doing that because they're doing the same thing. They're made out of the same
stuff in them. Yeah, but they're made differently.
Yeah. So I think we should start with the because we're talking about the older batteries, talking about the composition of older style batteries, which are NiCads. I'm sure you've seen that kind of written on your on your battery packs. NiCad stands for nickel cadmium. It's not the only thing that's in there. Often there are other trace elements and trace metals as well. Basically, the way that
my glasses.
You want to go get them?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find them.
So NiCad nickel cadmium batteries, they work really well. I think the best thing that you can do is that you're capable of recharging them, or certain specific ones, and that's definitely something you want to push at the Bower is buying rechargeable batteries, because it's kind of weird, to be honest, if you buy single-use batteries when you can get rechargeables, because you can get rechargeable batteries that'll last you 1,000, maybe a little over, different recharges. And the really good thing about nickel cadmium is they will basically get back to the same point. There were some older style batteries that had battery memory, essentially. But when you
I remember those.
Yeah, and so if you charge them the wrong way, or if you charge them too much or too little,
or if you stop charging, it always used to be. I used to work at a phone shop, and we used to say, if the battery's at 50%, don't take it out and put it on the charger. We used to tell them all the time, the manufacturer told us this, make sure you run the battery right down to 0 before you recharge it again. Because they used to get a thing called a memory, where if you kept on charging it at 50%, it would only charge back up to 50% again. Yeah, when that was, a couple of decades ago, the technology wasn't fantastic then. But it's come on a very long way these days. There's no more sort of memories in batteries now. So what's the newer chemicals that they use in batteries now?
Yeah. So the newer batteries. Where's that beautiful swollen one? That we don't get the here. This is one that you can see.
Beautiful swollen one.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
It's scary.
These both are probably quite small phone batteries.
Do you want to hold them side by side for me? And...
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, of course, yeah. Make me hold them.
Yeah, all right.
I don't like that this one is swollen. It means it's inside there. The chemical's gone a bit crazy and it's producing a gas, and that gas is that's actually quite tight on there, and this can be dangerous. If you ever see batteries bloating up like this, it's time to recycle them. Yeah.
So these are an absolutely new style, and even though we call them the same thing, it's a battery. They work in a very similar way. They work on DC voltage, like Andre was talking about, but they're made out of completely different things. They're made out of they call it lithium ion, but they're made out of lithium and zinc and manganese.
And there's like some cobalt in some of them stuff.
You're right, there's cobalt as well.
And the mining for cobalt is terrible as well.
Well, yeah, we can get a little bit into that.
Could get into that.
Well, I mean, mining for anyway. Basically, they're a lithium battery. That's the main raw material in there. And the great thing about lithium, they discovered, is it has the greatest energy potential or energy capacity of any element that they've found. Particularly that could work in this way, in a realistic way. And that's why it's used so well, and it's basically overtaken. Now you see those little AA's less and less, but you see something like that in pretty much all of your phones. A large version you'll see in your laptops. They're in all of our electronic devices. That's basically what we use now, and they are rechargeable as well.
And these original alkaline ones. These aren't rechargeable, although you can get rechargeable versions of these, can't you, as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which we like.
Yeah. Anyway, they're absolutely fantastic, but they have a very short life comparatively, compared to some of the rechargeable batteries. Not short talk time and that sort of stuff, but a short life just for how long you can use them. Yeah, over the life of the device, say the phone, lithium batteries are fantastic, but over time, I mean, that's really, really far gone. Basically, they although they can take a lot of energy and can deal with a lot of charge, they don't have a battery memory like you were talking about in the same way. They can kind of be charged as is, though there's a little bit of battery maintenance, but not much. But the really poor thing about them is that they only have 2 years of life, maybe a little longer.
You can get lucky and ones can last for longer, but on average, they're definitely a lot shorter than.
Yeah, and it's a toss up. I think that the manufacturing industry kind of got to, where they're like, well, these are lighter, they're better, they're more expensive. By the way, lithium is harder to source, but it's basically a toss up. And they went, well, these are better, and they'll do the job, but they're going to be a shorter life, and to be honest, I think that suits the manufacturers in a lot of ways.
It does.
On the topic of battery lifespan, we have a question from Bruce, which is quite tricky.
Bruce.
What was the battery used in the GM electric car that would last for the life of the car? That was in the doco Who Killed the Electric Car. That's very particular.
It's like a trivia question, Bruce.
Yeah. It sounds to me like they were using something, because if you think about Tesla's new electric cars, what are the Tesla cars called? Are they called
Tesla?
Just Tesla S and model.
We good? We're back on? Hello? Maybe? I would keep expecting people to yell back.
Yeah.
I would love
Can't
to
we
hear
set up
people's
everybody with
voice.
microphones so they can speak back to us?
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
It would be wonderful. We were in the middle of something. Well, let's just confirm that we're live.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I can see, yeah.
We're live.
Again.
Okay. If anyone can see it again, or if they've rejoined, comment and just let us know that you can see us.
And tell Max, our illustrious technical expert over here. Expert. We're all experts here. Hey, we're in a workshop. If you're in a workshop and
You're an expert.
You're an expert.
Yeah.
You're an advanced user.
You know what we need? White lab coats.
Yes, we do.
That would make us
That
expert.
would be wonderful. We were talking about batteries, and a comment came in about
The GM car battery.
The GM car, yeah, and there was a documentary made about why they killed the electric car and all that sort of stuff, because big oil and all that sort of stuff, all those dark dealings that they do, what rotters they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I was speaking about what I knew about the Tesla car batteries.
Mm-hmm.
That all Tesla car batteries have a big battery pack in the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and if you undo them and strip back what's in there, and I've actually seen somebody do this, they actually to check how it's all made, it's not just one big battery like with one big mass of chemicals, it's all single cells, and there's hundreds of them, and they're put in series and parallel. So when you put batteries in series, the voltages add up. So if you have 1.5, you get 3 volts. So they put a whole lot in series to up the voltage. I'm not sure what voltage they get to.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, apart from the fact that the technology already exists at that very small size,
Yes.
why couldn't they create one big one? What's the benefit of
Yeah.
using many small ones?
I think there's a number of benefits. The first one is that if you create the technology in lots of smaller packets, by stringing them together in series and parallel, you can create all sorts of different voltages and currents without having to change your manufacturing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So if you had one
Yeah.
big factory that just produced one big pack, and it was, say, 80 volts and and a certain current, to change that form factor down, you have to change all your tooling. So what they do is they have all their tooling for a single packet.
I see.
And also in terms of safety, if they can make the one battery very efficient, and they know that one cell is extremely safe from in terms of overheating and all that sort of stuff, it's much easier to certify that whole battery pack is safe than just dumping a whole lot of chemicals into a whole lot of layers, and that could be,
Okay.
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's actually...
And if one battery goes, the other batteries are protected from it. I think it's just the way Tesla worked it out. Yeah, there's economies of scale and all that sort of stuff.
That makes sense. It also goes to the fact that I know Tesla, without wanting to talk about them forever, because they're not the only company in the world that is doing electric, vehicles and stuff like that. But anyway, but I know for a long time Tesla has been trying to control the battery production chain, and they have no access to it at the moment. Basically, the majority of our batteries globally are made in China. The raw materials actually come from over 50% of it is actually mined in Australia. And at the moment, we export all of that raw material mainly to China, where they do the manufacturing, they do the building and the transport.
So that's just the raw materials that come from Australia.
Yeah, so
we just dig it out of the ground and ship it over.
Yeah, so Australia has the largest natural resource of lithium, of the newer style batteries that we were talking about before. And then I think there's the next kind of largest natural resources in South America, but they don't have the infrastructure to mine in the same way as we do. And it's actually an interesting point that some scientists have come out and started talking about why we haven't basically started to create a manufacturing industry in Australia around the battery production side.
Since we've got the raw material.
We've got raw materials. A lot of us, a lot of times we send these, we export them, but the actual, I think it's something like 99% of the profit made in battery production is in the manufacture. It's not just in the raw materials. So we sell the raw materials. So we get a
tiny little slice of the pie by giving them the raw materials, by digging up our own land, and then we hand it over to them. We have all the mess and everything of the raw materials, and then they make all the money for their company.
Yeah.
Well, they make the
large scale of the
yeah.
profit. And I know that Tesla, among other large vehicle companies, have had a problem with getting a battery supply chain because they don't have access to the raw materials or the manufacturing capacity to do it. And it means, I think, what you're going from is that they're more likely to use existing battery kind of standards and manufacturing
technologies and stuff,
instead of developing their own, which maybe, to go right round, is where something like the GM electric battery came from. When people were developing their own different styles, there was loads of different people manufacturing and trying different new ways. maybe that's why, although we can't talk about how it actually works, I don't know anything about the GM battery, but that's, you know, it seems like maybe we're set in a certain way of making them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Interesting.
That was deviating.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about, what were you talking about? Failure.
We're speaking about failure modes and shelf life and that sort of stuff. So, if we're speaking about just our normal alkaline batteries, and these are Duracells, if I go and buy batteries and I need to know that the device is absolutely going to last, say if I've got a lapel mic on with a a little box that's going to last, or the shotgun microphone we've got over here. And I've done lots of concerts because I'm a musician and that sort of stuff. I only ever trust Duracells. Even the Energizers that have the new Energizer, blah blah blah.
I think if you want sponsorship, you just pick one or the other.
The whiz bang. Yeah, I know. But I'm just telling you that these are the ones that last a bit longer for me. I'm not sponsored by Duracell. If you want to sponsor me, Duracell, that's fine. If anyone's watching from the Duracell company. Anyway, there's a shelf life for these, and this has been one of the selling points as well. Because if you buy a packet of batteries like these, I don't know if everybody knows this, if you buy a packet of batteries, say you see them on sale or something like that, and you put them away in the cupboard, or you put them up on your shelf, and you leave them for years, if you left them for 4 or 5 years, when you bring them back down, they may not be good anymore. They may have lost their charge, they may have leaked, they may have done all sorts of different things.
That's very interesting, because actually, again, without flaunting the brand, we got the Bauer was given there was, I think, 3 or 4 massive crates of these AA batteries were
as a donation.
Yeah, were donated to us, and it was really, really generous. Until we realised that the dates that were on them were actually over 5 or 6 years old, and so despite the fact that they're brand new in the packet, and they worked for such a short amount of time.
Did they? Yeah.
They were great, and we use them as testing batteries still in the workshop, just to see if something goes or doesn't. But in terms of having a long life, because they're 5 years old, even though they're brand new, they just didn't have the same capacity.
And I've got a special trick that I'm going to show now.
Okay, here we go.
There's a very strange thing that you can do to determine if you don't have a multimeter. And we use a multimeter. This will give you a voltage. So this is like before I was saying that a voltage is like water pressure, and current is like the actual water running through. There's actually a very strange thing that you can do to determine whether a battery is dead or not. If you take the battery and have it on a quite a solid surface, and you drop the battery, you've got to drop it right on the end,
the negative
right
side?
on the end of the negative side there, and see how far does it bounce into the air. You've got to look quite carefully. You've got to get it right on the end. See how that pretty much just landed straight down and didn't bounce up. Now take a look at this one, which is completely depleted. These are newish batteries. Now here's a battery that's completely depleted.
Wow!
Did you see it jump up in the air?
Yeah. So if it bounces, then it's dead.
Yeah. If it bounces, then it's dead.
How does that happen? Do you know why that's happening?
It's some very strange effect because when the battery is full, all of it's got a lot of electrons in it, and I think the electrons somehow absorb the shock.
Wow.
And so it just goes bang and just stops. But when those electrons are removed, the chemicals become more elastic, and you get that bouncing.
Wow.
Isn't that strange?
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, you could probably how far does it bounce up? Does that mean that it's half? You don't want to do that. But
as a general kind of basic measure, that's actually really nice. That's really handy.
If you've got I know I've got a lot of batteries in here, a lot of AA batteries in here, and instead of going each one to the multimeter, I can really just drop them on the ground, and if they bounce, I know they're dead. They're kaput. And if they land flat, I know they've still got a bit of charge in them.
So
Yeah, go.
What were we speaking about? Oh, we're speaking about failure modes,
Mhm.
of course. So this is another. Shelf life is one of the selling items. There are some Energizers and Duracells and stuff on the pack at the moment say long shelf life, 8 years or something like that.
Can I just say the batteries that I said before actually are called Power Life and are claiming to have a very long shelf life.
Long shelf life,
But
yeah.
clearly 5 years is about the extent.
Yeah, it's too much. So there's new batteries coming out at the moment. So they do have a shelf life. And another one of the selling items now is, the selling features that they put on the pack is leak proof, that they don't leak.
Oh.
So we've all had leaky batteries before. And if you've ever left batteries in a device and then stored that device...
Do you want to get a...
Oh yes, can we get a close-up of that? That is a classic leak.
That's a very good one.
Leak failure mode.
Hold it very still for me.
Yep.
Look at
You
that.
got that?
It's
Oh,
beautiful.
it's even corroding on the other side as well. So this is actually the chemicals, and because they have to be reactive chemicals to produce the electricity, leaking out, getting out. There's an electrolyte in here, and there's a few different layers in here, actually finding their way out of all those different layers.
And oxidizing.
And oxidizing and attacking the terminals. And when you see a battery doing that, then you really don't want to use that, because either it's not going to work properly, and the chemicals can be quite dangerous in batteries as well. You don't want to be
Do you know? I genuinely don't know the answer to this. Why they're more likely to happen when you leave a battery inside the appliance? You don't know the answer?
No, I don't. And I watch a show called the EEV blog. It's the biggest Australian electronics blog. And he is currently in the middle of doing tests with those sorts of things. So he's got a couple of appliances. He's putting batteries into the appliance and having the appliance on and off for you on standby. And he's storing them away for years to see what happens with them.
Okay.
I think it's more likely to happen to them when there is actually power running through. No, I won't say that. I don't know.
Good.
I shouldn't say that.
No, that's a good
know.
scientific response. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know either. That's why I asked.
Yeah. So this is what the main failure mode of batteries is. This corrosion. So, Griff, what do we do when we've got a dead battery? It's not a rechargeable battery. It's like a normal alkaline battery, and it's flat all the way. We can't use it anymore. Or we've got nasty batteries with corrosion. We shouldn't put them in the rubbish.
Yeah.
Should we?
Yeah, absolutely not. So I think that it's important to note that while they're not hugely efficient in terms of their recycling capacity, you can recycle bits of batteries. They're certainly recyclable. And the most important thing is that they can be dangerous if you put them into normal landfill. They're not. They're volatile. They're full of particular chemicals.
You don't want them in the water table, do you? And that's where they'll go if you have them in landfill.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a problem with not explosion, but with flammability. If you were talking about the positive and the negative terminals before, if there's some way to short or connect those positive and negatives, all that energy in that battery will have nowhere to go and will come out as heat and flame. Really,
yeah, they can flame. Yeah,
yeah. So that's particularly common with batteries like these, the lithium-ion ones. That can. That happens really, really frequently. And you were talking before about Samsung fault, which had a really common battery
problem. Yeah, and this was what they had and this was terrible for Samsung, because you don't want your battery suddenly going on fire in your pocket, because of course these batteries, they have a really high capacity and a high energy density, and they just trickle out that energy over 24 hours or 48 hours to power your thing. But that's a lot of energy, and if batteries go, like if I punctured this and got the right pressure, if you did that, flames shoot out of it and sparks come out, and it gets very hot and very dangerous. And that's the battery letting go of all of its energy at once, and it's very, very dangerous.
I so desperately want to be the Facebook live session that does that.
Oh man, it's really scary, and the chemicals are really dangerous as well. So where do we put our batteries? What sort of places have have battery recycling stations?
So I think a good couple of things for maintenance and recycling is when you're storing your appliances, take your batteries out.
Yes.
That'll mean that they'll last longer, and
Yep.
it also won't affect your device. When they do come to the end of their life, particularly single-use batteries, but also phone batteries and things like that can be replaced. It's really important that you take them to. There's so many different places that can recycle batteries that are battery drop-off points. I know that all Aldi stores have them. Any kind of battery world, mechanics, a lot of mechanics have them. Some office works as well, I think, does batteries.
And there's like phone drives as well, isn't there? Where, because there's so many old mobile phones lying around, where they take the phone and the batteries and stuff, and they try and get the reusable parts out of them. Some companies try and do that.
Yeah,
too, right?
absolutely. I mean, there's so many reusable materials inside a phone. But yeah, the important thing is just not to chuck them in the bin, because I know that it happens a lot. I think the best thing you can do is just drop them off next time you go to Marrickville Metro or whatever. You drop them off at Aldi, and make sure that they kind of go back through and get recycled as much as they can.
As much as they can. I wonder what they do and what the process is. It'd be very messy, wouldn't it? It'd be a very messy process to try and get stuff out of them.
I think that it's pretty limited in terms of what they can get out of it.
Right.
But the important thing is that they're doing it, and also I think just they're keeping it out of landfill. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah. They're going to have stuff in landfill.
Yeah.
Okay, how are we going for time? What's the time now, Max?
The time is about 12:10.
12. So the only other things that we had written down was it's been a bit of a strange video, this one, because we've stopped and started a couple of times. So we've gone over time. Usually it's only from 11 till 12. So I think we might just wrap up with a couple of final bits and pieces. I just want to speak about solar and batteries really quickly, just to give people a bit of information. If you have a solar panel, and if lots of people, people go camping or something like that, if you've got an RV or a caravan, lots of people have solar now. Now, solar panels are DC, direct current, and solar panels are exactly the same as batteries. So in a mains outlet, this is AC, alternating current, so 50 times a second the current in these moves in and out. It goes positive, negative, 50 times a second, 240 volts. This is very high voltage, high power, because it needs to be able to power whatever device you put in there. But so this is alternating current AC. Batteries are DC, direct current, like a river flowing just one way, and so are solar panels. So with a solar panel, believe it or not, solar technology uses the same thing that an LED uses. You know how before I said that LEDs use like a quantum effect? Solar does exactly the same thing. It's like a quantum effect, where you have a special junction, and when the light comes in and it hits this special substance in the solar panel, it hits off an electron, and that electron goes along and it creates a current. That's what a solar panel is. So, if you have a solar system at home, if you have solar on the roof and that sort of stuff, that if you want to store that energy, it has to be stored inside a battery pack.
I think that's been one of the main problems of solar, hasn't it?
Yes,
battery
it has.
storage.
Yes, because if you've got solar panels on the roof, a lot of the time you're at work. You're not at home during daylight hours.
So you're not using it.
You're not using it, but when you come home, you want to use all that energy, and the energy's already, the sun's already gone. So if you can store it in batteries, some people use 12-volt car batteries. They're very good because they're rechargeable, and they have they have special caps you can take off to look at the water and sort of stuff. Or you've got sealed lead acid batteries as well that you can buy. And these days you can buy big battery packs which are specifically for solar. So the only problem is that once the solar panels have charged those big batteries, that's like a big DC direct current battery, but all your appliances at home, your fridge and your hairdryer and your television, they all take this sort of plug, and this is AC, not DC like a solar panel and these batteries are charging up. So there's a device, and I'm sure many people have heard of it, called an inverter. And what that does is it takes DC direct current, and direct current is where it's always above 0 volts and it's just the same voltage the whole time. And it's a special electronic device that takes that voltage and swings it negative and then swings it positive. It's like a microelectronic thing. And what it does is it's funny it's called an inverter, because to invert something is to make something go from positive to negative, but it inverts it many times and it mimics the power coming out of your mains. So it ups it to 240 volts, like 240 volts here, and it makes it go negative and positive and negative and positive at 50 hertz, just like out of here. So that's what an inverter does. Usually though, you don't get the same amount of power. It makes it 240 volts and AC, but usually with a system like that, depending on how big it is, these will deliver 10 amps, which is a whole lot of current. That is a whole lot of current. These will produce usually milliamps, so thousandths of an amp. So mains power, can produce. So I don't know if you'd be able to run a big stove off a solar inverter, but I just I want to mention that because when we're speaking about batteries in DC, solar is something that we're all using more and more often as well. Yeah, I love solar. I love all electronics. I get excited about electronics.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, it's it has been, we've been thrown a little off schedule, but I think maybe wrap it up for the moment. But we definitely want to talk about some bits and pieces that the Bauer are running, constantly. Like Andre said earlier on, this will be the last one of our kind of electrical Facebook Live sessions. But I think we'll continue to do things in other ways. We might come back in another form. We will certainly still be doing our online one-on-one repair cafes. I think
one-on-one private consultations.
Oh, private consultations. Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Where you can, if you have something, an electrical item that you want to get assessed, we can't do it in person, but we can do it online remotely. And one of the Bauer electrical experts can kind of have a look through and talk through maybe what's going wrong with it, whether it's worth repairing, see how much it might take to get repaired.
Yeah, and you can go into the bower.org.au, that's BOWER.org.au, and if you take a look there in one of the drop downs or in one of the main slides, or you can probably search for it, it's one-on-one repair consultations, and they are held usually on a weekend, and I think we alternate the weekends or something like that. You'll see when you go into the booking. Just a casual 15-minute session where you have a Zoom session. A Zoom is, I'm sure a lot of people know about it, but for those who don't, Zoom is a technology that allows you to do like a video chat call through your computer. You have a one-on-one Zoom session and you can say, look, I've got this or I've got that. And with clothing, bicycles, furniture and electronics, they're the four main things that we're concentrating on. So that's the one-on-one sessions. And repair cafes coming back. Because the Bauer was all about repair cafes. People would come in, bring in an item, see an expert, and we would try and help you, repair your item. But COVID has skittled some of that.
I'm not sure about the details on dates, but we really hope to start bringing some of these things back in a real COVID safe way. We'll obviously be limiting numbers and things like that. So just stay tuned. Oh, thank you. Speaking of. So just stay tuned on the Facebook and on the Bauer's website, and I'm sure we'll announce things as they come back in. We know workshops as well. We did some online workshops, but we'll be starting to do these things again. Obviously, again, real, with a real element of safety. But we want to keep teaching people, and we want to get people back in the room in one way or another.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for watching. I'm sorry it was a bit stoppy and starty.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll have 3 separate videos for this one video. Someone will have to video edit it and try and string it all together. But thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you. And give us all your feedback and comments. Let us know what you want to hear about. Come and get in touch.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Thanks, Griffin.